Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Diego Pacheco defeats Steven Nelson by a 12-round unanimous decision at super middleweight. Of course, Diego Pacheco is one of the more well-known prospects, up-and-comers at 168. Matchroom are putting quite a lot of stock into his career, giving him quite a push. And going in, he was the favourite. It was still billed as a step up for Diego Pacheco. Steven Nelson went in with an unbeaten record of 20-0 with 16 knockouts though. 36 years old. I believe he had a late start to boxing, Steven Nelson. He was an army guy, and I think he took up boxing in his early 20s maybe, something along those lines. And yeah, going into this fight, he'd beaten some sort of domestic level guys in America, got a few knockouts along the way, and of course he was associated with Terence Crawford. Bomac was his trainer, or is his trainer, sorry. So yeah, going into this fight, despite Steven Nelson being unproven himself, I think he was still viewed as a step up for Diego Pacheco, and that was how it transpired really. Steven Nelson by far gave Diego Pacheco his hardest fight, and I have to say, the fight was much better than I expected. I really enjoyed this fight, really enjoyed it. Pacheco showed some good signs in the mid-rounds. Steven Nelson showed some really good heart in this fight. Both guys really came to bang, really came to give it a go. Pacheco, to me, just had a bit too much. But the scorecards were a little bit too wide, in my opinion. I actually had this fight 7-5 in favour of Pacheco, but the judges all had it 9-3 to Pacheco. I felt that was harsh on Steven Nelson. Sorry, I've got a cold by the way, so yeah, I'm a little bit discombobulated, so bear with me. Early on in this fight, Nelson came out as the aggressor, but he was very herky-jerky. He was trying a lot of feints on the front foot. He was fighting with a bounce in his step at times. Sometimes he was level changing. Again, sometimes he was trying a lot of feints, getting his head off the line. He was very jittery early on, Steven Nelson, but he made it work to his advantage. He would kind of fight primarily out of a crouch, I would say. And he would fire jabs to the body, straights to the body. No real power on these shots, but scoring shots nonetheless. And Diego Pacheco was taking the half step back, looking like he was trying to get himself some space. But first 4 rounds, I felt that Pacheco looked a little unsure of himself, and it looked like he was really struggling to find his rhythm. You know, like I said, that jittery kind of come forward style of Steven Nelson, I felt bagged Steven Nelson free of the first 4 rounds. You know, again, not much in these rounds. Pacheco would land the odd jab here and there. A couple of straight rights here and there, but he was really trying to, he was kind of struggling to get his timing down, and I felt that Nelson took advantage of that by being a bit more busy. So early on, I felt Nelson had the first bit of momentum in this bout, but round 4, towards the end of round 4, Diego Pacheco kind of caught Nelson coming in with a pull counter right hand. A good shot by Pacheco, and it caused a cut on Nelson, which actually bled quite a lot. And this was a turning point in this fight. After round 4, Diego Pacheco really started to find a home for his straight right hand as Nelson was coming forwards. There was a lot less sort of feinting from Nelson. He was still a bit jittery, but a lot less feinting. He wasn't as unpredictable with his movements, and Pacheco was able to fire from the outside with his straight right hand. Also, when Nelson would overstep his mark, when he would overstep and cross into mid-range, Pacheco would land like a really nice timed uppercut, and he was picking some really good shots, Diego Pacheco. Nelson would land the odd shot here and there, but it was really sort of cuffing. There wasn't much power on the shots that Nelson was landing. Like, Pacheco was landing much, much harder. And basically, rounds 4 to round 10, all of these rounds, rounds 5 to round 10, all of these rounds were pretty much bossed by Diego Pacheco, primarily behind the straight punches, But at times, Pacheco would fire in the uppercut as well, sometimes hook around the side of Nelson's guard. And at this point, it looked like Nelson was the one struggling with the distance, because when he was on the outside, he was getting peppered. When he crossed to mid-range, he was getting uppercutted. And he couldn't really get to the inside. When he did, he was really landing sort of clubbing, messy shots that weren't really doing much. And it looked at this point like Steven Nelson had been domesticated, kind of put in his place, so to speak. Though I will say, he was taking some hellacious shots in these rounds. Nelson showed a good chin. He was hurt a couple of times, but the recovery was almost instant, When he would get caught, little shake of the legs, right back to it, recovered. So, goes to show, Nelson had great cardio going into this fight. His conditioning was really good. And yeah, I think the cut affected Nelson's game plan. I think it threw him off, and it took him a long time to recover, because Pacheco was kind of styling on him from rounds 5 to 10. Though after round 10, Nelson realised what the time was. He realised he was down. He realises he needs something special. And very often we see fighters in this position and they're happy to go the distance. They're happy to survive. Nelson didn't take that approach. In rounds 11 and 12, man, bro, Nelson just came out and started swinging. Left hooks and overhand rights. He was just reckless with it. Quickly trying to close the distance. Quickly trying to smother Pacheco. Landing shots in the clinch as well. Making it really uncomfortable. Round 11 was a good round. Nelson just completely outworked Pacheco, but Pacheco came back towards the end of the round with a couple of great uppercuts that, kind of momentarily put Nelson in his place, but I thought Nelson won round 11 based on the activity, and round 12 was a great round, man. It actually looked like Pacheco was hurt a couple of times in round 12. One left hook in particular, bang on the chin. Pacheco had to go for a walk, had to get away. A couple of good overhand rights as well. Both guys traded in round 12, but it was Steven Nelson who was the aggressor, and it was Steven Nelson who was throwing more punches. I don't know whether in the last 2 rounds, whether Pacheco didn't have the stamina to keep Nelson off, or maybe he was hurt by a couple of those shots that Nelson landed. I'm not sure, but Nelson took the play away from him in rounds 11 and 12. He won those rounds as far as I'm concerned with the aggression, and he made it a really good finish to this fight. And yeah, overall, man, I felt Nelson did a great job. He did better than I expected. I thought he might be live in a couple of rounds, but he made it a closer fight than I thought it would be. Because again, I had this fight 7 rounds to 5 for Diego Pacheco. I had it closer than the judges, but ultimately I felt Pacheco deserved the win. And it was a really good fight, like I said. And I think it's a fight in which, again, if Matchroom take their time with Pacheco, it should be a good fight for Pacheco's, development. He should learn from this. Pacheco does have talent. He does have ability. I think he does some good things in there. But it's clear he still needs seasoning. And this is the sort of fight that theoretically, should he be the type to learn from this, he should get better. He should get better. It was a hard fight for him. So yeah, where does Pacheco go next? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch, to tell you the truth. Or maybe that dude that Caleb Plant fought, Trevor Mukumbi, that'd be a good fight for Pacheco as well. These sort of fights, Maybe either a rematch with Nelson or someone like Trevor Mukumbi. I think that would be good. Those would be good fights. As for Steven Nelson, listen, Steven Nelson's never going to be a world champion, but I think if you match him in there with mid-tier, exciting super middleweights, you're going to get some good fights. This guy could be a bit of an undercard attraction, I would say. If Gabe Rosado was still about, that would be a good fight for him. Maybe himself against Trevor Mukumbi would be a good fight. But, again, apologies for snivelling and sniffing, man. I've got a cold, what else can I say? But yeah, I'd like to see Steven Nelson again in well-matched fights. Fights against guys who are going to come to fight. This guy could be a good undercard fighter on big cards. But anyway, both guys showed some good heart in there. Both guys put up a good fight. Interesting watch, entertaining watch. I recommend you watch it if you haven't seen it. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy, peace.